Okay, this is part 2 of changing spark plugs on the 2007 Kia Sedona. Similar to most cars that have a sideways mounted V6, an intake plenum, and the plugs are behind there hidden. I already did the fronts. And on the fronts we did all kinds of detail about how to get these clips off, and I'm skipping all that. We are just focusing on getting that plenum off there, what it takes, because doing the plugs is going to be the same. So if you don't know how to do plugs, watch part 1. So just a couple obvious things we're going to look at. We're taking this plenum off, so we need to get to the bolts for it. So we separate bolts that are attached to the plenum. We're going to remove those. Now we're going to unattach as much as possible, but we're not going to remove anything from the vehicle unless absolutely possible, unless absolutely required, because there's so many parts in here. You don't want to spend years putting it back together or whatever. So we're going to find out what it takes. For example, there's a nut for the plenum right there. So that's that's what we're talking about. It's not. There's the edge of another nut. It's not impossible to get to. There is a gasket in there. It's supposed to be a metal gasket, and we're going to inspect that when we get it out, so just be careful. And don't forget, once you take that plenum off, you have holes going into the engine. You need to plug it with some rags. Don't drop your tools down there. Be careful. All right, so I'm going to begin taking off a few things, and then I'll shoot a little bit of video to see where we're at. I'm not going to do, full time, drive you crazy. You just want to see the highlights here. Okay, so what did we do so far? Took off the bolt holding that to the plenum, separated all these electrical connector from the plenum. On the other side, disconnected some hoses from the plenum. This hose was there. Again, removed more electrical connector. Want to be able to get that out of the way. Took the air intake pipe off. Get that out of the way. So the cable over here that we're going to take off, and we're just going to go, and pretty soon we're going to be able to pull this back, pull those bolts, and lift the plenum, and then start seeing what it's hung up on. Okay, I've removed all the things that were obvious, and I began removing the bolts that are holding this on. And there's a metal pipe. Here's where I am. There's a metal pipe here that's sort of in the way of the bolts, but it has 2 bolts. I loosened them, and I can jiggle that thing out of the way. If I have to remove it, I will, but now you can see the bolt there. Okay, so the plenum is loose on the front, but it's solid as a rock, as if there's something serious holding it in place, not just a rubber hose that needs to be removed. What I found reaching back is, can't see it, there's a metal strap that bolts to the block and then to the plenum, and that's solid as a rock, so that's got to come out. Feels like it's probably a 12, and there's one on the other side also. Obviously, you just need to remove it from the plenum. Getting a wrench back there is going to be a little tricky. You can do it. All right, I successfully moved the bolt hole in the back, and that allowed me to lift the plenum considerably. Now, I can more easily find out if it's hanging up on anything, or if we even need to remove it any further. The goal is to get the plugs in, not really to get the plenum out of the car. So let's move around to this side. See what we see. It looks like there's some kind of line connected to the back. But I also think, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do those plugs. I'll play around with it. What I found wedged in the back is this, looks like it's the power steering pressure line, actually. Not 100% sure. But it has two bolts hold it in place. One of them's missing, and I bent the other one a little bit moving around, but that's easy to straighten out. That is hard to get to on that side. So now, ooh, big progress. Look at that. Well, for our purposes, we got it out of there. Oh, you can see that back brace, and there's the other back brace. Those are the items. And this guy, you can see the bracket for it. So, at this point, they're exposed. Doing the plugs is easy. If you wanted to do the valve cover gasket, now's the time to do it. So, thoroughly inspect that with a mirror, go along the edges, look for signs of seepage. I already did the front valve cover gasket on this one. It was, of course, very easy. But there's no sign of the rear leaking that I saw. But I'm going to thoroughly inspect it and make my decision. That's so easy. It's not even worth the video and the rest of it. Well, I say that, but sorry. You might not have done one before. So let's talk about if you wanted to do that. You would have to take this valve cover off. So there's a couple more items, anything attached to the valve cover. There's a pipe back there, hose, some bolts going all the way around. One's in the back that you can't see. And you lift the valve cover up. And then follow the directions on other people's videos on how to do valve covers. It's actually really easy. This is the hard part, getting to it. Okay, that ends part 2, because I assume you know how to do your plugs at this point. Then just put it back together, which I highly recommend.